Okay, this is the Shuttlecock Emerger. Very good stillwater fly. I don't do a lot of stillwater fishing, as you probably know, but I do go occasionally, and when I've gone, I've used this emerger, which has been fantastic. A lot of my friends fish it, and they tell me it's a very, very good fly. It's got a CDC wing, which is called a shuttlecock because it fishes like that, and it just looks like a nymph coming out of the, well, a midge really, emerging. Okay, so I'm going to tie this now. Not a lot of materials involved, fairly easy fly to tie, in my opinion anyway. So I start up just behind the eye and I take the silk down in touching turns. You notice I'm putting pressure on this loose piece here because this helps me to slide the silk down in touching turns to give a nice foundation, which is fairly important on this fly. I don't want a lumpy body because I'm going to put a stripped peacock herl body on, which has been dyed red or maroony colour anyway. I go well round the bend. I've cut that loose bit off now, and I carefully take this around the bend, take in a bit of time. About like that. Now I've got the stripped peacock quill from peacock herl, from the eye feather. It's stripped and it's been dyed. Well, I run a marker pen down it. It's not the strongest material, so you've got to be a bit careful with it. And I want you to note that I'm tying it in by the wide end first, which normally with a fly, when you tie your materials in at the back end like this, you always tie the narrow end in to give it a sort of carrot shape really. But with the peacock herl, I like to tie it in by the wide end first because there's more of it in view back here and you'll see the fly. Now I'm going to stop my silk there. I'm coming back to here, but to park it out of the way a moment, I'll just give it a couple of quick winds up the front. 1, 2, 3. That's what I tend to do. Now I'm going to put a touch of varnish on the shank, as I said, because it's not very strong material, and this will help to stick it down and give it a bit of strength. Don't need a lot. That's that. And I carefully wind this herl. Another thing to tell you about this herl, my advice with this peacock herl is to leave a little gap. It seems to give a better marking. So I'm not doing touching turns. It looks better, in my opinion, with the black silk showing through underneath. I hope my fingers are not blocking your view. You should be able to see it when I've finished winding it with a bit of luck. Now you can use various quills for this body. It's tied in many ways. Right, I'm going to take my silk back. 1, 2, 3, and I'm back to where I want it, as you can see. And now I'll just secure it like that to tie it off. I've got a bit of fluff around here which I've picked up off the bench. Okay, that's that on now. So that's the quill. I'll give another wind or two just to secure it. Now I want to put on some wing buds, and I like to use a bright red. It's a floss, a bright red floss like this. The reason I like the red, it gives a sort of blood effect, hemoglobin type of effect, which I think attracts the trout. And the way I do it, I just try to get it on like this. A couple of ties like this. sort of a figure of 8 if you can do it. But now I'm going to take them both down like that and tie over them to get the effect I want. Just like that. Now you see they're down there. I get a good sharp scissors and I cut them off, taking great care you don't cut the silk. Cut about there. You see those little buds poking down? That's what we need there. Now I'm going to put on the CDC, which comes over and forms this shuttlecock effect. And CDC Cul de Canard, this is the natural colour. It's from the area of the preen gland of a mallard duck, and it expels water. It's very good for that effect, very good on a dry fly, because it's good to float. Now I get about 3 or 4, depending on the size, and I wet them like this. I've just wet them because it makes them a little bit easier for me to see and handle. Now when you tie them like this, you've got to remember they're going to come over and form the wing case and protrude up. So you've got to be careful. Make sure you've got the right size. I'm going to make that a teeny little bit longer. Yeah, just see where the eye is. That's about it. So there's my CDC. It doesn't look very fluffy at the moment, but before we finish this fly, it probably will have dried up. I'm going to remove these butts, like that. Stalks of the CDC. Just remove them, and now I'm going to put on a bit of dubbing. I like the ice dub, and I like to use the rust one. For this, it's got a bit of sparkle. You don't need very much. Probably need a little bit more than I've got here at the moment, maybe. With all dubbing, a little bit of moisture helps. Just a little bit. Don't want to wet it, just a little bit of moisture helps. No, there's enough there. You notice my silk is now up the front. Now I bring over the CDC to give the shuttlecock effect, and I tie down here. Watching it doesn't all get pushed over. When I tie it there, lift up and put some winds in front as well. Back over the top, tie it down nice. And now I'm going to put on the whip finish. And that's all there is to this very useful fly. I'm going to sort of finish, do some winds behind the head. 1, 2 behind. And now I'm going to pick up the silk, the CDC, and put a couple of whip finishes in the front. Like that, in the loop with my dubbing needle, and I draw it up. Basically that's the fly. I'm going to cut the silk, now I need to put some varnish, so I shake my varnish pot, my Vineyards varnish. I use several types of varnish, they're all pretty good. This particular one is nice and thin because I want it to run into the windings and underneath. That's the head varnished. Put the top on, always do that. If you're a newcomer, take my advice, always put the top on, because there is a tendency to knock it over. One of my friends has ruined several pairs of trousers doing that. Now I'm going to clear the eye. up with an old hackle, which, as I say, you usually get hanging around on your vise, up through the eye, and there we have the Shuttlecock Midge Emerger. Okay, it's a stillwater fly, and it is a very good fly. I've had it on good authority, and I've had success with it myself. Okay, until next time, happy fishing.